And we are live for the very first time with the funded Great Commandment Comics Anthology. My name is Jack Holder. I am the editor for the Great Commandment, and I am so excited today. We're going to be talking with Summer Steinhart. I was talking with her earlier. She said, you know what, we're going to be talking about all things comics, so Jack, you can just shut up and let everything slide. I'll take care of everything. And sometimes I just want to yammer everyone's head off. So we're going to be talking about The Great Commandment, Summer's work with Dustin Nelson on Rescue, what it is like doing being in the indie comics biz, and we're just going to have a grand old time here. So let's talk about this, because this is the very first interview we've had where we can call it funded Kickstarter campaign, The Great Commandment. So you can see the link in the comments below. I hope it's wonderful, it's exciting, it's wowzers, and all sorts of 90s kids cartoons, adjectives for excitement. So, what is it? The Great Commandment is a comics anthology featuring over 24 tales asking what commands mean. Now, commands actually are a part of every aspect of our lives in society. You have the high and eloquent, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish tranquility, and preamble on and on and on, to you must love your neighbor as yourself, and the 10 Commandments. We also have the more common everyday commands of, okay, let's make sure that dinner is actually made, or figure out how you're going to pay for Domino's this time. What are we actually going to do our grocery run? To the very lowbrow and very heartfelt commands of live long and prosper, the prime directive, be excellent to each other. Wonderful commands, but just as important as they are for what they say, so too is our response. But what does that all really mean? What does it mean to be excellent? What does it mean to live long and prosper? And that's what The Great Commandment is all about. Over 170 pages of content featuring tales like samurai Akita dogs quoting Sun Tzu and defending their home from ninja cats and giant mailmen. Dog in Screams of Thy Father, being adopted by a brutish master and how that affects his own relationship with life, to keeping it with the dog motif, a young man who buys a house for the very first time next to a factory, and things start to get a little bit weird. That is just the very beginning for Rescue. We have the artist here, Summer Steinhart, and alongside writer Dustin Nelson. She managed to come up with an absolutely amazing tale for us. We're going to be talking about that today. Summer, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. And again, congrats. We're funded. That's pretty awesome.
Woo!
Yeah, I know. Gotta get confetti cannons.
I know. This is the problem for StreamYard. I was looking for like some sort of confetti, anything. They're like, you banners. I'm like, not the same.
Nope.
But Summer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your own work?
So yes, I'm pretty new to the comics scene, but I'm started doing one-page, one-shot comics with the Comic Jam. So that's kind of how I started my take with comics. And I've started to branch out and get into anthologies. The Great Commandment was actually my first and successfully funded one I got into. And I've also been accepted into 2 more now. So it's starting the road. It's pretty awesome. I'm mostly an artist, but I have started writing my own. I've wrote some one-shots, and I have some web comics in development. So yeah, a little here and there in the comic world.
Absolutely. Now, I didn't realize this until maybe like 2 months into the creation process after I had accepted and sent out all the acceptance. But with what I was talking about, we have Warrior Breed with Eddie Headington, Teresa Del Pilar, and Sam Prowse. We have Screams of Thy Father with Aaron Williams. And now we have Rescue, focusing on dogs and a lot of their relationships to mankind and or humanity, to actually get the more appropriate 21st century descriptor. Can you talk about this? Because this is very different. This is probably a bit closer to sci-fi and for humanity horror than Warrior Breed would be.
Yes, I'm actually friends with Sam and Teresa, so I saw some of their stuff and was excited to be a part of them. And it's definitely different from theirs. I was actually surprised when I talked to Nelson. Didn't expect a story. It is definitely a darker story. It definitely takes a very heavy twist. But basically, with our story, oh, sorry, I blanked. But so basically, he wanted to describe the nature between dogs and humans and how they reflect each other. And I think when he thought commands, dogs, as you can see, a lot of people they're one of the few animals that take commands from humans. And so he wanted to kind of reverse the roles a little bit. I am sorry, I blanked. Repeat the question.
Well, there we were delving into the nature between dogs and mankind with Rescue. And I also want to ask you about your art. It is different than most of the others. Like, you see Teresa's and Sam's, and it seems a lot more built towards the more humorous, or even like Usagi Yojimbo. Aaron's, it's a lot more horror aspect. Yours seemed a lot more to, okay, let's set this in the 50s and 60s suburbia, and let's find the terrifying in there.
Yes, so with mine, I had actually recently started reading the comic Lady Killer, which is, I think that's like 50s vibe. And so I really liked the way that looked. It was kind of classic, kind of old school. And it also, hers was more flat colored and heavy inks. And so I kind of went with that. And I originally was actually going to do this more cartoony and like kind of goofy because I was afraid, like, is this going to be too scary for the anthology? So I was like debating back and forth. So I definitely took a slight cartoonic vibe where it's heavy and you get the vibe, but you also don't like, okay, this is too much, this is too gory. So I tried to experiment with styles like with Lady Killer. So some of the panels are just solid colors and some of them have the background details. But yeah, it was like a toss up. Do you go heavy with the theme or do you go kind of light with it? Like, so I kind of went in the middle of cartoony, but also at the same time, like you kind of get the scary vibe going.
Almost reminds me a little bit of Fallout's sort of cartoony aesthetic.
Yes, I love that style. Yes, I've been trying to experiment with that with further with my comics and stuff because I think that's more of the vibe I want to start going towards. I always thought I wanted to be like a realistic detail. Like when you look at Marvel and DC, it's that same polished look. And I was like, one, it's really hard to duplicate. And two, I'm like, but I kind of like this. I like more stylistic in a way that it's heavy graphic, but also has that simple color palette, like flat color that it gets a cartoon vibe. Because that's what I enjoyed growing up was the superhero cartoons before I started reading.
And growing up in that time period, same for me. 90s kid, which meant you had a lot of the Image comics, but I didn't grow up on those. I grew up on Calvin and Hobbes and Foxtrot. Those were my comics, so I loved the cartoony element and aesthetic. But it's also one of the things I love about The Great Commandment and Why Faith is you're going to get the more quote-unquote realistic. You'll see that with mine and Knock Knock with Lucas. But you'll see Angela Audling's work, which has been described as simple elegance by everyone, not just for writer Russell. And you'll see the cartoony with Nick Torres. And I'm really happy about the comics age that we're in currently, because no one's out there telling this is the only way that you can do comics. Like, do you get that sense that right now art is more just quality is based on how well you're doing your particular thing rather than fitting to Jim Lee's model?
I definitely think it is. When I first started like getting into comics again, I used to be in it when I was a kid. My dad introduced me to comics, so I wasn't foreign to the idea, but then I kind of lost track of it and the passion and all. But then in high school, I did it. And when I started back in high school, I got that same vibe where you have to be like Jim Lee, you have to do this. And when I actually, by joining the Comic Jam group, I was actually introduced to the indies comics. And I was kind of taught that indies comics were like loser comics, don't pay attention to them, they're nothing. But if you look at the world of the indie comics, it is bold, vibrant, and more exciting, I think, than some of the mainstream. And when you look at them, it's the artists, the writers are doing what they want to do and they're enjoying it. They're getting to draw what they want to draw, how they want to draw, without those strict, this is what a superhero looks like, this is the Marvel style. So it's definitely, if you look at it, it's this day and age is the best time for comics. Yeah, everyone's doing comics, but that's it. Everyone's doing comics because you can.
One of my favorite current creator writers is, do you know Dirk Backderf, the guy who did My Friend Dahmer?
Yes, I've seen the art for that, and it's been on, like, I want to look into it more because I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, and what he does, he just came out with a couple new graphic novels, which are wonderfully tragic. One is about his time as a trash collector, literally called Trashed, and he talks about our obsession with just generating garbage. But the next one was the Kent State shooting, and but his style is one of those where it seems cartoony and you think it's really dumb and, oh, this can't be good, it's just an indie comic. And then you'll see something truly horrifying, and because you've been conditioned in cartoony mode in your body, you're just like, oh my God, what just happened? What? And it's the exact same thing with Rescue, because you're not expecting anything. You're just like, okay, this is a wonderful story about a man and his dog. And okay, for some reason, you're not supposed to go over that fence. Something just happened.
Yeah. Yes. I was definitely the vibe I wanted to do was do that. Like, definitely wanted to start it off like, you know, simple little dog, little story. This is okay. This is cute. And then definitely wanted to go harsh. Like, here's it. It changed. It got heavy. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, but yes, just like with the creator that you mentioned before, that's I think is the best part about indie comics. I also think you can read something, and that's the thing. Their style can be misleading, and you can think, all right, this is gonna be this type of story, and then it gets deeper and emotional, and you just don't expect it with such a simplistic style or such a cartoony style that I just think it gets more of a point across sometimes than if I just give you a straight, realistic, here's a, you know. I think it brings you in more too, because I think we still have this idea in our brain, even as adults, like cartoons, like we're still invested in them. We still want to see where they're going. Like, and you kind of get a little misled because you're like, it's a cartoon, so it's happy, it's going to be good. And then something deep happens or something heavy happens. And you're like, whoa. And I think that's the fun part of the indie styles too that you'll see around.
Absolutely. And I definitely want to make it clear to anyone watching this. I still love superhero comics. I still love those concepts. But I think they're made better when we have this absolute wide range of styles. Sometimes even in them, I read more manga than I would like to admit. I watch more anime. And that is when it gets really wonderfully weird, because you're going to have the amazing superhero 2-page shot that obviously took like 3 days and 2 different artists to build. And then for the next 6 panels, it's going to be cartoony, round faces, and straight almost stick figures having a blast. And that's what I love is when you have so many different art styles, it means that everyone is able to actually explore their own meaning in this.
And that's another thing I think with anime and manga, especially as a comic book artist. If you want to do something different, I'd study them because they almost have no rules. I feel like with Western comics, I always felt there was a certain style, a certain kind of story you had to tell. Like I felt like the character, like I went from like a year where character development felt stale, and then you read manga or you watch anime, and I think one reason too is anime is something we don't really have. We have DC's starting to explore adult cartoons with the Harley Quinn, but you just don't have that where it's made for almost an older audience. But they like Japan, they just go all for it. If they want to design a crazy character that makes no sense, they're going to design a crazy character. And I think that's one great thing. So especially if you want to get into indie, I would study some of their techniques and styles because they just have a ball doing what they do.
What you see a lot with Japanese art style is very much, I have an awesome concept for like design, and now I need to build a backstory to actually get me to that. I'm like, I'm already over here, and I just need to build the rest of the building so I can get up to the top floor.
Yeah, and it's hard too. It's
It is
definitely
so hard. Like, you're going to see this a lot of times if you're trying to be a creator. You're like, I have this amazing concept for a character, and you're like, oh my god, how do I actually get there? Like, how do I get someone through the insane ramblings of my mind in a way that doesn't make them want to run screaming? Like,
yeah.
Harley Quinn is a really great example. My wife and I just got HBO Max, so we got to watch through the first 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
But that meant that we also got to watch Rick and Morty. And I'm looking at this going, that's not fair. Why are you allowed to do all this and I have to build this much character development? And Rick and Morty, we are on an ass planet. That is it.
Yeah, they literally, I think they're almost like South Park. They just go in and go, you know what? Let's just do whatever today. What do you got on your mind today? Because I think that's a problem too creators do have with comics is like, I know for me personally, logic. I feel like there needs to be logic behind everything I do. My reader won't like it if there's no logic. So I get so like stuck on creating stuff and storyboarding and storylining. And I feel like that's just the way you have to be. Like, I just want to be able to just do something. And I feel like that's what some of these creators do. They just do it. They go with it. They see where it's going. Like, I know in my one webcomic group, these people, like, these are kids making these web comics, and they're like, no, I don't plan anything. I just go and I'm looking at their stuff. I'm going, this is really good. I hope you stay in comics because this is incredible. Like, you just go with it. You're not, making yourself stop, think what's logic about this. And I think that's a problem is like Rick and Morty, literally they do whatever they want when they want, slight little bit of logic in there. But other than that.
Yep. And going back to anime, it's like, okay, I need to build everything. And you will see people, and when anime and manga think it through, you get freaking Full Metal Alchemist. It's considered one of the greatest pieces to ever come out of comics, period. But you'll also get One Punch Man. Hi, I am bald, I wear a cape, and I kill everything with one punch because I am too powerful. Let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the new one that's out that I have friends reading is Chainsaw Man. And they've shown me some stuff in that. And I was like, I think he just comes up with it on the spot. Like, you know what would be good? This. and it's literally one of the most wildest things I've seen. And the art style too is 1 second, it's like you said, is a nice detailed, like, wow, that's pretty incredible. The next is like scribbles and emotions, and you're just like, whoa. Like, how does he portray all that?
Do you remember like a few years ago, Axe Cop that came out?
I heard about it, and like I saw something about it, but never really looked into further of it.
It is what happens when American writers and artists take this idea and go too far into it. It is literally like a 20-year-old who was asking his 5-year-old cousin and literally just jotting down everything. Like, and it's like, it literally is from panel to panel, you can hear the 5-year-old speaking. And suddenly everyone's pregnant. And I'm like,
Wow.
I have questions. Like, you have successfully gotten rid of my suspension of disbelief. I'm no longer going, what? That's cool. I'm just going, what? No, stop. And I think that's the one thing that we are all scared of is the stop. Not stop, this is awesome, but stop, I'm setting it down, and I am walking away.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a fine line when you're creating something, because I mean, you're creating out of nothing, and so you need to know, is this, like, I don't think you need to dwell on, is this good enough for people, but whether or not, like, does someone want to read this, or am I just talking out of nothing now? Like, is this just, and I think that's a good important time, that I don't think a lot of these people like get proofreaders, or they actually do audience surveys, because I was trying to do a young adult graphic novel for someone, and I'm like studying about it, and the popular ones are like this certain style, this certain vibe. And then I went and surveyed some like actual like 15-year-olds to 70-year-olds, and they're like, no, that's not what we like. That's just, the main agenda pushing it. I'm like, oh, okay. Then I'm gonna do this instead. And I feel like with some of those stories though, they need some like proofreaders. You need to actually talk to your audience a little bit, like see what they want to read or watch. Like,
proofreading. I heard this story, like the romance vampire writer Anne Rice. She did Interview with the Vampire Lestat. Like, amazing works of literature. I don't personally like them, but I can look at that going, this is objectively really good. Like 20 years into her career, she was like, I feel a lot happier with myself now that I got rid of all of my editors and all of my proofreaders, but for some reason my books aren't selling as well. And I'm like, sometimes you do need, like, you need to be doing stuff because you think it's cool, but you definitely need that person right beside you going, yes, but let's think this through for at least 5 seconds.
yes, I bug my friends with my art, especially. I'm like, does this look okay? Is this reading okay? I won't tell you what it's supposed to be, but if you look at this, am I portraying what you need? Are you interested in it? Like, is this art cool? I know, like, when I was drawing Rescue, I bugged my best friends so much. I was like, what is this, like, what does the evil dog look like? Does this look cool? Is this scary? I was like, is this too far? Like, so I definitely, I love proofreaders, and I love people that will help me out, and I bug them. That's why you need friends that are like interested in what you do, so you can bug them constantly and don't have to pay them, because editors cost money.
Editors cost money. I am going to say they are worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
A couple of women who have done editing for me, Tracy Konopka, Katrina Rowitz, you were worth every penny. That is another thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. Comics are expensive to make. Like, they are not expensive to buy until you start getting a habit. Like, $4, you're buying a cup of coffee, and for probably just as much time as it takes to consume a cup of coffee, you can consume a comic. Like, really in depth. but it's really expensive and time consuming to do that. Like,
Yeah, I think that's one thing people don't understand is the cost of it, which I mean web comics and like webtoon stuff has really made it nice for people to read free. But yeah, I've talked to writers and I'm like, this is such a good story. Why haven't you done anything? Oh, well, I can't afford an artist. And I feel like, with me personally, I've been doing comics with just a few writers and I actually haven't been paid for a comic yet. I've been paid for my other art, but not a comic. And that's just because A, the enjoy of it. And I'm like, there's some great stories out there. Like, I want to help you as a writer get your story out there. And I feel like money shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, I feel like I have probably, I think over 400 comics now. And I understand the cost of them and the price, like it does add up. So, I mean, every penny for the most part, because I'm really choosy of what I buy physically is definitely worth it. But the cost between editors, letters, and if you break down the artist, the colorist, and it's a lot. And if you're definitely going to publish, I definitely always say go with an editor. Like if you're trying to actually, put it out there or put it with a publishing company, I definitely would say get an editor. But yeah, they're costly. Like,
they're costly, and it is never a sure thing. Like, I am finally working on a project that I have loved and adored for many years. How many? I wrote the script in 2015. My wife says 14, and she's probably correct. But it took until this year with an artist that I have known for multiple years to actually get up the courage to, okay, we're going to do a preview and we're going to just go on Kickstarter next year. And he just came out with the art, and I'm like, it's one of those things that I'm dying to show people. It'll be a reward for everyone once we get through this campaign.
Yeah.
Because
that was. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. It is one of those where I was like, we are just going to have fun. Let's build the awesome vista. Let's go full magic ridiculousness, and let's have a blast. And so I was so happy that the artist was able to do it.
I feel like when you have something like that, especially when you say magic and have fun, when you tell an artist that, you're like, okay, let me add it. Just tell me if there's any rules. That's it. But yeah, I had one friend who actually told me he'd been trying for 10 years and actually has just recently had some success. But as a writer, he refused to work with me because he felt bad if he didn't pay for me. And I'm like, I want to do it though. Like, your stories are great. And then that was his thing. Like, he felt that if he was going to work with an artist, they needed to be paid too. But yeah, when there's an anthology I'm trying to get in with another writer, and his stuff was literally like, you like Doctor Strange? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, the story's going to be like Doctor Strange Explode. I'm like, I'm in. Like, that is going to be so fun to draw and just so like. And he's like, you can have all the creative you want. I'm like, yes. Like, no rules, yes.
So here's a question from writers to artists. How detailed, how much do you need in your scripts?
That is a very, like, some artists are different. For me personally, though, because I don't want to speak for all artists, I like a little direction. When I first started, my brain was like not able to even, let's create a comic. So I liked a lot of direction. I was also coming out of like, high school and a little bit of art school. So they had strict guidelines, strict direction. This is what you're doing. So when someone gave me like a one-worded panel, I was like, what do I do? Like, so I kind of like a combination. But at this point, if you want me to go like full reign, and that's fine. But if you have a specific vision, definitely tell your artist, because I don't want to spend 12 hours on a page and it not be anything that you're like want to do. Because for me personally, doing it, I want to create it because I think it's a cool story. But it's like your child. Like, you kind of created the idea of it. So I want to make sure your vision's clear. So like at this point, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, a little bit of direction's nice. Don't give me a blank page. Like, I know everyone talks about the Marvel way, and that's just kind of like, you artists draw what you want and then we'll add later, and it's just like, that's not for me. Like, I need some type of direction.
I both like the Marvel way, but it also it takes a lot of pressure off the writer, which is, we don't even have that much pressure already. My advice for writers when you're writing scripts, when it comes to description, you got to put down the important bits. Well, what's important? Well, what's important to you? Like, it is. Do you need to have the exact right color red? Is that important for story? Is that important for moving everything forward? If so, great. But there are also times where I've been talking with artists going, we have a 3-page fight scene, and here's who wins, and here's the important things that happen during this. Can you just have fun with this? And the artist is like, I love you so much right now.
Yeah, I think with that, those things are definitely, it's easier to take that and do whatever you want and you can still have it. But as long as you have it, so if his arm gets cut in the middle of the fight, you gotta include that. And also I think one thing is panels are not paragraphs. You do not have to tell the whole story in a panel. And I've had some scripts where there's 7 actions going on in a panel and it's just it's one panel.
That's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you want me to break this into 4 pages. So
a panel is not a paragraph, it's a moment. It is a slice in time. I've had to learn how to add more. I can't just throw one line and take a paragraph of what could be on one panel. I've spread it over 2 pages, which is actually dumb and takes away from possible action. But also trust your artist. You gotta trust your artist. It's hard, which is why also the major thing that everyone says, especially throughout these interviews that I agree with, don't start with your magnum opus. Do not, if you're the biz, don't come out saying, and I have this amazing 300 issue comic. No one's gonna buy it.
I think that's we've been trying to tell that to especially the younger artists in the webcomic group is just put something out there. You're wasting, not say wasting, but putting years into a 300 plus page comic. You need the practice for one. And just coming out there with nothing behind to back it, I'm a little hesitant to just go buy a 300-page comic. But I think another thing is, too, being an artist, writing for artists is very difficult. One, because you already have the image in your head, how you would draw it. So I've actually learned that I put half descriptions because I want to see what other artists do. And so I write something simple like he's walking down the street and I'm thinking it's a left to right panel. And they have it so that he's walking straight towards you down the street. And so it's definitely interesting. You're like, how much detail do I put? How much not? And I've worked with different artists and one of them's like, what else do you want? What else do you want? And I'm like, just do you? So it's hard. It was really hard the first time because I want to draw this. This is a good script. But it's definitely because you see as an artist, so you kind of get an idea of how a page should flow, but at the same time you don't want to be that overbearing artist that's this is how it is, this is what it should be. No, you're not doing it right. So it's a challenge. I don't know if it's as hard for a writer who's not necessarily knowledgeable on the artist's part, but it's a challenge. It's a balancing act.
It's definitely a balancing act because you sometimes look at certain panels and you're like, okay, I know that this is not exactly what I want, but I can't properly say is going on. But a lot of times it's like, oh my God, you're able to take the crazy ramblings of my mind and you made it pretty.
Yeah, I've gotten it a few times. I think it's so exciting. To me, I don't necessarily draw for the audience. I draw for the writer. So sometimes you draw a panel for a writer and that's exactly what I was thinking. Wow, that is so cool. And I think that's another thing. Writers, don't be afraid to tell your artist this isn't working, or, you saw it a different way, because maybe what you're seeing it is the best way. Sometimes, the artist is not always right. We're just kind of thinking what you want. So I think if you have a problem, you want something different, you need to like just don't be afraid and definitely tell them.
That is sage advice that I don't think gets taken often enough.
Mm.
And I will say this as the writer because I will say this as often as possible. The artist is more important than you. Seriously, Summer, every single time, like I've had writers come up to me and go, the art isn't that great. I'm like, then why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
If the art is great. Art sells a comic. Story and art keep them there. Like that is how people come back for the next issue. And that's why with Marvel superheroes, you see the artists getting the big bucks and they're sticking around for many, many years. Because Marvel and DC know, hey, if we put out something with bad art, people aren't going to buy it. Like, and that's the main reason why artists, I believe, should get paid more than writers. Also, due to time constraints, I can write a comic issue in the same time it takes Summer to get through one page. And it's not because Summer's going slow. It is literally because writing is just faster than art.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing a lot of people miss. I've had a few writers who are a little stubborn about that, and they don't, as a writer, I guess, when you're reading a comic, you're reading for different things. I look straight for the art first. I won't lie. I look straight for the art, and then, the writing. I know a letterer who strictly goes through a comic book first just to see what the lettering looks like. Is this good? Is this like, this is supposed to be professional work, and it's so I mean what you're reading for is different, but I've noticed some writers are like, oh, the story is more important, it has a higher thing. But it's like you said, if the art's the first thing you look at is the art before you even read what it says, and that's what's going to sell it for you.
Absolutely. And when it comes to lettering, I almost consider it like special teams for football. Like you don't notice it until it's really bad. Like
that's like our letter, we had a letters come out and we made him do it, and it's Letter Squids. His stuff, letters don't get as much credit as they should. Like they should definitely be up there because the recent projects I've been on, it's definitely an art form that I wish I understood. I personally don't. I'm really bad at it. But he is so talented. He's able to take your art from like 60 to 100. And I've seen some of the other stuff he's worked on, and the artist he's worked for, it's the same thing. He really can bring your page alive.
Yeah, my guy Micah Myers, he's done things for Dark Horse and Image and everything, and he's like, you need a full comic issue completely lettered. All right, give me an hour. And he'll do it quality work. And every single time I look at his stuff and people are like, I feel like I could do lettering. I'm like, no, you don't.
And
you think you could do a Scottish accent, or I'm from Massachusetts. You think you can do a Boston accent. You can't. I live 20 minutes outside of Boston. I can't do a Boston accent. I have lived just outside that city for 25 years. I cannot do a Boston accent.
Yeah, I think that's also I think it's also a forgotten part of comics. Like the art's good, the story's good, but if your lettering's off, I'm not gonna read it. Like it gets hard to read. So it's definitely like the hidden art form of comics that needs a little bit more appreciation.
Yes, it does. Artists, I still feel, don't get enough appreciation. Writers, I think, get enough appreciation right now. Like, I think I can say that with confidence because I've been to enough comics conventions to see the writers get top billing and sort of things, and I love how much praise we are getting. Artists need more. Artists sell everything. Like, there's no art. You've got a comic is half a chapter in a book.
Mhm.
It's not even a full chapter. You talk with New York Times bestselling authors, you talk with the people who have made it, the amount of work that you put into one comic issue, they'll put into half of one of their chapters. And it's like, hi, you need to make about 40 of these before I consider this a real book. To which comic writers are like, that's like 4 years of work.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, now you see what's going on for poor artists too.
Mm.
All right. So we have gotten to the what I call the QVC portion, because even though we fund it, we are still bringing this book to you. If you like Summer, and why wouldn't you like Summer, and you want to support her first published anthology ever, you need to come out here. We have $5,186 from 112 amazing backers. Thank each and every one of you. Oh my God, thank you. This is the most successful crowdfunder I have ever run, bar none. Put any metric, The Great Commandment has beat all of them. Thank you to all of the creators. But we still have over 5 days to go. So we're trying to get this book in as many hands as possible. Do you prefer digital, or you are overseas and you hate the shipping fees that unfortunately are a part of life now? We have PDF versions. Do you want to actually get this in your hands, especially if you live around Florida? So when we get this pandemic under control and you can go to a con and get Summer to actually sign the book for you, you can get the book. You can get deluxe version with added artwork as well, and plenty of added content. If you want my first anthology in this vein, Why Faith, it is available as well as a part of this. This is a great opportunity that is fading fast. And we are really thankful we funded. We are really, 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 really thankful that we funded. Which means we want you to get the book too. Summer, do you want to add anything for that?
You pretty much covered up, but yeah. It's my first anthology, so you should all just support it because you all love me. But no, I think it's a really great opportunity to get anthologies are the best because you get a collection of artists and writers that you kind of get a little sample of all their work of what it might be, and you might discover some new writers that are artists or even letters that you might be more interested in knowing more about. So I definitely support it. I've seen some of the pieces that went into it, and it's pretty good, and it's definitely worth it.
Absolutely wonderful. All right. Summer, are there any... I've asked this for just about everyone. This anthology is about interpretation and taking external forces and you personally putting your interpretive spin on it. We usually want to leave that up for readers. We want to let them take meaning and everything from it, but we have the artist right here. There. Sorry, everything gets flipped around. Proper cameras. What do you want people to take from Rescue? What do you want people to take from The Great Commandment, or even like 2020?
We don't need to talk about 2020. That's been an interesting year itself. But no, from Rescue itself, I think maybe reflect a little bit of how you treat things around you, especially nature and animals, because, you know, sometimes karma comes back a little bit, you know, sometimes everyone gets their day. So, I mean, 2020, I'm waiting for it to just end and have its day be over. But definitely, and as commandments alone, I think you think the 10 commandments, but I think after this anthology, you definitely should take a step back and really think what it actually means, what a commandment means to you as a person, as your identity and everything.
Yeah, I was in weekly Bible study because I am a nerd of all shapes and sizes. And I was talking with the two people that were a part of the Bible group about commands in art, and the response very much was, hey, sometimes you need to just be able to take a step back and consider why you believe what you believe and what your beliefs have meant to you, like how they have affected you personally. What does being a Christian mean to you? What does being an American mean to you? I can say that because I'm Whitey McWhiterton, just outside Boston. But it very much is like, what does my identity, what is it, what have my values done to affect me and the world around me? All right, we've been going for 45 minutes flat, Summer.
Yeah, wow. It went really quickly.
I know. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to add?
Just thank you to my amazing writer, Nelson, and Letter Squids. He was our letter, and I have to shout him out because he is amazing. But I really appreciate they took a chance on an artist who doesn't really have a lot in her portfolio and not a lot of experience. And look, we got a funded anthology, so it's pretty awesome.
And I want to say thank you to Summer for taking a chance on someone you found in a Discord anthology talking about religion, and you're like, you know what? I'm still going to submit.
Yep.
That will do it for us tonight. Thank you so much. Please, posting the link once again. Check out the Great Commandment Comics Anthology. 5 days left to back. You can get Summer's work. You can get my work. You can get so many other amazing artists and writers' work. I hope you enjoyed this. I will be with you not tomorrow, but the day after with Margaret and Jesse Lundberg talking about my guide and falling out and into Catholicism. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Many blessings to you. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Bye.